Join our knowledgeable hosts as they dive into the captivating universe of comic books, movies, TV shows, and pop culture. Get ready for vibrant discussions and a shared enthusiasm for all things superhero and beyond. A comic podcast straight from the panels. This is Beyond the Capes.
All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of Beyond the Cape podcast. With us today is Mr. Fish of Fish Comics. Welcome to the show.
Howdy. Glad to be here, man. Really excited.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty good chance encounter because I know I stopped by a booth for Warline and you happened to be there, and we had talked about having a Kickstarter, and here we are. So for everyone that may not be familiar, if you had to give a little bit of a bio background, what would you go for?
Who am I and what do I do? I am Mr.
That's
Fish
correct.
from Mr. Fish Comics. I like to joke that I make a living making comics nobody reads. But I'm the fastest working man in indie comics for sure. I've worked on over 85 books since 2019.
Wow.
Usually as the penciler, letterer, inker, and colorist. Like, you give me a script, I give you a finished book. And over the last year and a half or so, I've been cranking out my own books for a change, and I am at 12 or 13. I'd have to stop and take count again right now. I launched a Patreon last year as a subscription service for my comics, where you can sign up for just $10 a month to get a comic shipped to you every month. And it sounded crazy when I started it, and everybody's like, there's no way you can get a book done a month. But I was doing that anyway for my clients. Yeah. So, like, over the last 11 months, I've shipped out 12 books. So it's been keeping up with it. It's doing well, and it's been exciting. And now I am running a Kickstarter for my new issues of the Mighty Kaaw, the Cro-Magnon, which giant bird barbarian from outer space. It's freaking awesome.
Yes, I definitely can't wait to get into that. Now, what's more impressive is your jobs. I mean, obviously, you're doing it from start to finish. Now, is this always like, did you start with one versus more of like a creative writing as a kid, or was it more artistically kind of as a kid and then you kind of transitioned into a little bit of both?
I've always been an artist, but being an artist as a kid just meant that I could draw the best dragster out of a triangle and two different size circles. Like, I didn't have to be that good. You know, I drew little squiggles at the back for smoke off the tires, and that made me better than everybody else. But you know, I enjoyed it, so I focused on it. And I have Tourette's and autism and ADHD and stuff, so I would get hyper focused on things that I like and just spend hours and hours drawing, which, you know, eventually you're going to get better at it. The real thing, though, for me was the creativity. I loved making up stories and telling stories. As a little kid, that made me a liar because I didn't know you could just like say, hey, I made up a story. So I would try and make up like, yeah, I met a guy that told me this and got me in a lot of trouble. But I didn't know you could just say, hey, I made up a story. Here, let's listen to it. Let me write it down. And, you know, but so the storytelling is really my passion. That's why I'm doing this for a living. The fact that I'm an artist and a very fast artist just happens to be icing on the cake, you know, but the storytelling is what I'm here for. If I couldn't draw, I would be hiring somebody to do the work for me.
Yeah. So comic books then for you growing up, that was a pretty big inspiration, or was that something you found later on?
Oh man. Yeah. When I grew up, and now I'm an older generation than a lot of folks. When I grew up, they were still at all the stores and the pharmacies and the newsstands and everywhere. So like, if I was good at the doctor when I was 4 years old, my mom would stop at the pharmacy and like get my cough syrup, and I could get a comic book. And a lot of times it would be like a multi-pack of back issues that had gotten repackaged in a plastic bag. And you'd get, you know, 3 to 6 books or something for like $2. And I would tear those things up. I loved them. Even before I could read, I loved them. And we always had comics around the house because my brother read comics, my sister read a few. And so they were just like always there. And so I would look at them and study the artwork. And my mom even helped me break down like the basics of how to draw a human figure based off of superheroes with like the trunks and the belt and worked my way out. And she helped me start doing that when I was like 5. And, that was freaking awesome, man. I drew so many of the same dude over and over again, like just change one little thing to make a new character out of it and would plaster my walls with them with all the weird aliens and stuff that I made up. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean that's a great training because it's funny the amount of people that I've talked to on the show. And I always say like new artists whenever they approach me now, like, oh, I want to be on the show. And I'm like, all right, cool. What are you? He's like, well, I've never really drew before. I just want to make a comic. I said, all right, maybe you should focus on the foundations first. Like, keep drawing, keep doing the same thing over. They're like, oh, that's really your only advice. That is my only advice is to
Oh man,
keep going.
repetition is key. People want to figure out the hack, how to get to the end of the line quicker, but it's just endless repetition of doing it. And I have been making a living off of my art since junior high, and it has always been my day job. So I've always drawn a lot. And even when I'm not working, I was drawing for fun. But the major leap my artwork has taken over this last 5 years when I started doing comics full time. And now I'm not just drawing like one logo for a t-shirt or one image for, somebody's company logo or whatever it is I was doing. Now I'm drawing panel after panel, page after page, 2 to 10 people per panel, all kinds of hands every which way. Like there's no comparison to that kind of work. Like just cranking out that many pages day after day has made me a lot faster than I was, and I was always fast. And it's made me a lot better, and it's helped me hone my style down to more of a razor's edge and figure out what do I really want to do? What lines do I really want to use to tell the story to make this clear? How many lines do I need to make that clear? And it's just, man, my work has increased exponentially, but it's that constant repetition. A lot of folks don't want to do that. They want to
No,
know the hack to be good. And you can't jump to the end of the line like that.
no, everyone loves those YouTube ads. Become a master drawer in 30 days or less. I'm gonna say that's
I
not
can
gonna
teach you the
happen.
5 easy tips to go viral right now. But
Yep.
yeah, it doesn't work that way. Like you
No.
got to put in the hard work to get there.
Yeah. Who was it? I think we were at a panel at C2E2. One of the artists that was doing it was like, do you know how many times my portfolio was rejected by Marvel and DC combined?
Man, I wish I kept those rejection letters because like when I was graduating high school, Image was taking off, and Todd McFarlane and stuff was one of the biggest dudes in the world. And I followed his advice of just send out as many packages as you possibly could. Eventually somebody will say yes. So I sent out like 60 to 90 packages every month. And which was easy because my parents had a postage machine at their office. I didn't have to pay for the shipping. So they would let me just, you know, use their copier, copy off pages that I'd done and ship it out every month. And I would ship out, at least 60 every month. And I would get back probably 13 rejection letters, of people that even bothered to reject it uh, every month. And I would just keep doing it over and over and over again. And I never really learned from any lessons that they said because everybody said the same thing. We want to see that you can draw our characters.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to waste time drawing sample pages of Spider-Man and Batman just so the two different guys could see that I can draw their stuff. So I just focused on my own stuff. And I should have at least done some Spider-Man or Batman or Superman or something so they could see that I could make it look like a character that everybody would recognize. But all I ever wanted to do was do my own comics. Like
Yeah.
I fell deeply in love with comics like in the days of the Ninja Turtles blowing up in a black and white comic, back in the day before the cartoon. Like that's what I wanted to do my whole life was do indie comics. And they were all black and white at the time. So I didn't even bother learning color until relatively recently. And I still kind of feel like a fake when somebody pays me to do a book in color. I keep waiting for them to take the money back when they're like, you're not a real colorist. But like the last 3 gigs I got were just doing colors, and I just got nominated for a heroic award for my coloring in a book. And that's mind blowing to me because in my head I'm still a black and white artist, but you know, 15 years ago or something, I had to learn how to do color.
Yeah. Well, it's really funny you say that because the amount of comic books I feel like now that I see that are going back to that like black and white with like one pronounced color
Mhm.
seems to have grown, which I really like. I think it adds a lot more to the story when you're not so, I guess, fixated on like what the color of the page looks like or the explosion. You really hone
Mhm.
in on the story.
Oh, a buddy of mine, Hoyt Silva, we became friends because I fell in love with his webtoon, Last Stop, and ended up getting published by, I think, Scout Comics. And it's following this, you know, big superhero dude as he's dying of cancer. And, you know, it's his last few missions. And he did this beautiful thing with it where, you know, it's just black, white, and then like 50% gray, and then a color. And, you know, that accent color on this page might be pink, on this page might be orange, on that page might be blue. But it really helped set the tone and stuff of what was going on. Was this daytime? Was this nighttime? Was this really dramatic? That one extra color really helped make the pages sing. And it was so quick to do because he's doing a webtoon. So he's got to be pumping out, you know,
Yeah.
the equivalent of several pages, you know, every week for this thing for it to update. And it let him work so quickly. And it made me so jealous because I have a story that I'm just now starting on about a character that jumps between dimensions. And I wish I had come up with that idea because I would like each dimension to be a different color and it would make it so much faster to do than doing full color. But if I do it now, he's going to know I stole it from him and he wouldn't care. But I care. It was such a brilliant idea and I wish I had thought of it.
Yeah, that's definitely a good idea. Now, obviously, you have experience in both art and writing as you make your own. Do
Mhm.
you find yourself, especially now, getting more into kind of the writing aspect of it as well, kind of tending to lean towards one?
I love the making up stories. I have a real problem with just stories constantly erupting out of my head. And everything that I see, everything that we do, every conversation that I have, every episode of the news or TV show or movie that I watch spawns 50 different new ideas. And lots of them just erupt out and dissipate, but some of them hang on and won't let go. Like the mighty call was one of those. I was having a conversation with a friend and I was drifting off to sleep, and then the idea erupted in my head, and the mighty caw, the Cro-Magnon, made me laugh as a pun. And I got up and sketched him out, and a month later, I had a book finished, and it was ready to go to Kickstarter. And you know, I had a Patreon launched for subscription. Like it moved quickly. Sometimes that's a really good thing, but it's also really hard when you have lots of new
Yeah.
ideas pumping out of you. And, you know, I still have to do, you know, issue 4 of Green Zone. And I need to get on, you know, issue 3 of my Fishtails anthology. And I need to get on issue 5 of the Mighty Caw. And, you know, I've got other things I need to do and client books I need to do. But the new ideas keep coming. And
Yeah.
that part's kind of frustrating, but I also kind of love it. The actual sitting down to like write a script, I hate it. It gives me so much anxiety, and it's not hard. Once I sit
Yeah.
down and do it, it's not hard. But it's just the anxiety of getting started. It's that fear of like, you know, oh, it's going to be a whole thing and I have to break it down into how many pages and you know, and how much can I cram into a page and I just stress out over it for no reason. It's just ADD stuff, you know. It gets to be bigger in my head than it really is. And once I sit down and do it, it's not hard. And I'll often end up scripting out like a couple of books at one time because I'm like, well, I'm already doing it. I might as well just keep going and, you know, get it done. You know, if you're going to rip the band aid off, just keep going.
Yeah. Jump right into the deep end. Now, one of the interesting things I've always wanted to ask is I heard once that as much as people hate drawing interiors, and some people very much hate it, Lettering, they seem to hate more because they said no matter how many times you look at the title page, you always wonder, like, is this letter just a little off? Do I need to change the font just a little bit? Do you have a preference?
Man, like on which part's my favorite or which do I
Or do you,
dislike the most?
do you what do you dislike the most?
Originally, I hated inking. Like originally, like back in high school, I absolutely hated it. And I kept trying to find somebody that could ink for me. But like back then, you're stuck to like who lives in town with you and goes to school with you,
Yeah,
or like who you happen to work with, and you're not likely to work with other comic book artists. Like that's pretty rare when that happens. So I would try to get other artists that I knew that were talented to ink for me, but they didn't draw as sketchy as I did. So they would try and ink all my sketch lines, and it would just come out being a big mess. They didn't know how to edit and to ink, decide what you're going to ink and not just scribble over all those scribble lines. So I had to make myself do it, and I hated it because I already drew it once. I don't want to do it again.
yeah,
I want to go on to the next page. But now I have to meticulously go over everything, and there's so many chances for mistakes. And if I, smear black ink on the page, I didn't know that there were ways of fixing that. I just had to like figure out how to make it work or start over on a new page. Nobody told me because we didn't have the internet and stuff back
yeah,
then with lots of videos from comic book artists telling you how to do this stuff, or even scans of real artwork from Jack Kirby and stuff to show how many times he just pasted another piece of paper over there and drew over it because he didn't like what he put down the first time. I didn't know you could do that, so I just had to make it work. Now, inking is actually my favorite part. And now that I work digitally, I can work really, really loose,
yeah,
and I don't have to put all the details in because I can do all those details in ink, and I can draw it. I can really draw that face one time. I might mark out across some of the times, or if I really want to make sure that the face is right, like I've got a female character in the Mighty Kaw now, and I want her to look right. I want her to look pretty, but she also has to look tough. That's a little harder mark to hit. So I'll pencil her face out pretty well. But Kaw, I just put, a Kaw shaped head on there and I'll draw the rest in ink because I've drawn him so many times. Um, Now I actually love doing that part. The lettering is frustrating. I'm good at
yep,
it. I do a good job. I've studied it a long time. I've done a lot of jobs involved with typesetting and worked in t-shirts and sign making and, graphic design and stuff. So I know a lot about making it look good. But oh my god, there are always crossbar eyes in the middle of words somewhere that I can't find, and I become blind to them. After I've looked at this page 3 or 4 times, it quits being words and it's just a shape of a balloon on a page, and sometimes my editor will catch it and be like, these are in the wrong panels," because, like, I just moved stuff around so much as I was working to get it figured out. I just mixed them up, and when I look at them, I see what I intended to put there. I don't see the mistakes that got made. Or when I
yeah,
was editing a balloon a bunch of times to get it to break right in that bubble, I might end up deleting a word accidentally or copying a word accidentally. And it might be, look out for the snake man because I rewrote it so many times trying to get it to fit that bubble. And so he catches a lot of that stuff for me that I'm oblivious to. I can't see it. I see what I'm thinking I meant to write.
yeah. Yeah, I think it's very easy, especially when you've been working on something so long. You just kind of get that tunnel vision, and in your head, you've seen it from scratch to kind of your
Mhm.
progress. So for you, you're making huge strides where someone from the outside could probably see kind of the
Yeah,
finer
like
details that you might be missing.
that's kind of wonky there, but and you need that. You need an
Yeah,
outside perspective. Like that's why I am such a huge proponent of hiring an editor. And anybody that says, "Well, I don't need to hire an editor," yes, you absolutely need to hire somebody, and you need to pay somebody who's good at it, that's willing to hurt your feelings, and will tell you like not just somebody who's going to spell check it or grammar check it, which there are people that will just do that and everybody needs that. but you really need somebody that's going to look at those pages and say, okay, this page doesn't make any sense, or I don't know how we got from this panel to this panel, or we need to put a caption box or something in here because it looked like they were running away when we turned the page, and now they're just standing there, and nothing is telling me that this is 3 hours later. Like,
Yeah.
they point out that stuff that we just assume is clear because the whole story's in our head as a creator, either the writer or the writer creator like me. The whole world's in my head. I know what's beyond this tree line. I know what's on the other side of that roof. I know who's standing off camera. So it all makes sense to me. But if it doesn't make sense to a reader that doesn't have the whole thing in their head, I need to be made aware of that before hopefully it goes to print and a whole bunch of people
Yeah.
tell me it doesn't make sense. So absolutely, it is my biggest tip is hire an editor that will hurt your feelings. That, and don't spend the money until the job's done. Those two things are my two biggest tips for anybody wanting to make comics.
No, that's great advice. 'Cause, man, that has to be a heartbreaking moment to spend all that money to a printer and then getting that first issue and just seeing a blatant error and
Oh man.
knowing,
And you can't be afraid of making screw ups because we're
yeah,
gonna make screw ups. And every comic book has screw ups in it somewhere, probably. And even Marvel and DC do it. It's not the end of the world. It's more important that if you want to do this and you really have the drive for it, it's more important that you start making comics, because that's going to make you so much better than sitting around hemming and hawing about trying to get one perfect. Because you could spend 10 years trying to get one book perfect, and there's
yeah,
still going to be mistakes in it. But if you spent that 10 years knocking out 10 books or 20 books or 50 books, you would be so much better at the end of that 50 books if you just start doing it and keep doing it. However many you can get out at a time. I'm lucky that I only have to pay me. Like, I still have to pay my artist because he has a mortgage and he has kids to feed. But it's just the one guy. I don't have to worry about hiring a penciler and a colorist and all this stuff. I hire a flatter for flatting my pages because she just sped me up so fast. And oh, it she took me from a book I planned to get done in a month and a half. I got it done in 12 days the first time I hired her. And I have not hired her for a book since. I hire her for absolutely everything. I hate it now. I'm so spoiled when I have to flat my own pages because I was like, why would anybody pay for this? But it speeds it up so much. And I didn't used to flat my pages. I would just color them.
yeah.
But having that flat layer to reference speeds me my colors up so much. I don't have to spend time drawing selections over and over again around your shirt when I'm going to color it. And now I want to highlight it, so I have to draw a selection. No, I just click on that reference layer and it's selected. And it saves so much time. It is ridiculous how much time I wasted making selections that I don't have to do over and over now.
Awesome. Well, everyone listening, definitely take those advice, because I can tell you, having talking to many people, those are all key takeaways. Now, the important reason and why we're here is you have a Kickstarter, and we talked about it a little bit at the beginning. So the Mighty Kaaw,
Mhm.
that's the full title?
It is the Mighty Kaaw, the Cro-Magnon. But if you type in KAAW into Kickstarter, you'll find it. Or you can go to gomrfish.com right there on the screen and take it to you. But he is a massive bird barbarian dude, uh, savage from beyond the stars. He comes from a world where everybody has evolved from different species of birds, and the Cro-Magnons are like the biggest, uh, buffest ones, but they're kept as slaves. They're considered a threat. They're super dangerous. You can't trust them. They're all stupid, and they make them do the dirtiest jobs, and like pulling cores out of reactors and stuff. Like, they really treat them badly. Their wings are shackled. They can't fly. They're not even allowed to have kids and stuff without being assigned to. And Kaw got sent to the battle arena when he was just a little kid, just a fledgling, and he was sent there with his entire brood, all of his brothers and sisters. They all got eaten by monsters in the battle arena while the crowds cheered. and then Kaaw gets kicked out, and he cuts his way out of the monster and survives. And he has battled every single day of his life ever since. Became the hugest star in the entire empire through the holovids of his battles in the arena. Everybody knows he's always going to win. He's an amazing show to watch. He's become a superstar. And eventually he became so famous that the other Cro-Magnons started to get restless, and they're like, wait a minute. If he's the baddest there is, then like, why are we slaves? Why do we have to listen to you if Cro-Magnons are clearly stronger than everybody else? And why does he get to fly in the arena and we have to keep our wings shackled? And he ends up starting a slave rebellion. The rulers of the world can't stop him, even though they're way more technologically advanced. They're these cybernetic creatures known as the Angelic Council. They're throwing their entire army at this dude, and they can't stop him. So they hire alien space pirates to capture him and take him off world. Like, if you can just get him out of here, we can get everybody else under control. And that's the first 2 pages of the Mighty Kaaw, and it just goes from there. And it's just action-packed Saturday morning cartoon fun. It's super violent, but it's a love letter to Saturday morning cartoons. It's He-Man and Thundar the Barbarian and Thundercats and Flash Gordon and all that kind of stuff. It's a quick, short book. It's action-packed. It's, like when we last saw our hero, he was being chased by the hellhounds of hyperspace. And then, he defeats the monsters and he crashes the ship. And, oh no, he's shipwrecked on a lost planet on the outer reaches of the universe. Will he survive? Turn in next month. And like I said, I've been shipping these things out every month to my Patreon backers. And it's been going well. I'm really enjoying it. And now we're doing a Kickstarter to raise the money to do a big print run so I can stock up on issues 3 and 4 and like put them in the TikTok shop and put them in the online store and stuff. Cause the Patreon is, it's still at a number right now of backers that it's low enough that I can print them myself on my large format printer. And I do custom specialty covers and stuff for my Patreon backers and all that kind of stuff. But they get to read everything first, so it's exclusive to them, and then it goes live to everybody else. So now we're doing the Kickstarter to do the big print run for 3 and 4, and probably stock up on more issue 1 and 2 because they've been selling well. And and then it's on to the next book, and on and on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a great story. I think for me, it reminds me of the Spartacus, which I can never get tired of that movie or the show. The art I really like because it reminds me of a show that used to come on. Who's the artist? Jendi Tartakovsky. I think he did Primal.
Man. I love his stuff.
And seeing that Birdman, I'm like, that's the first thing that reminds me of is this guy riding like a T-Rex into battle and just slaying
that's
everyone.
a huge honor. I almost gave him a giant monster crow as like a pet. And because down the road there's going to be a character that's going to be traveling with him that's going to need to keep up. And I was like, well, she's going to need a way to travel with him so he's not having to carry her all the time. So I was going to give him this giant crow, like a battle cat kind of thing, to follow him around. And then a friend of mine was like, that's going to be a little too primal the way the story worked out.
Yeah.
Because I ended up having to change the story, but it was going to be the bird captured him and was going to feed him to her young, and then a giant snake attacked and he killed off the snake, but all the baby birds got killed. And so she kind of just followed him as the only little feathered thing around. So she follows him kind of as his kid. But he was like, it's too close to primal. And I was like, dang, you're right. I didn't even see that. I was trying to keep it significant from Battle Cat, and I just walked right into primal and didn't even see it coming. Man, that's high praise, man. That means a lot. Thank you.
Of course, no problem. Now, the biggest thing is obviously you started this a little bit ago. Do you have an end in mind for the story, or is this something that you could see yourself like, this is my first volume? I'll maybe shelve it for a little bit and then go back as he maybe explores other worlds or intermixes with other hybrid animals.
I've got at least another 30 issues in me before he gets back to his homeworld again. Like there's a lot of stuff that happens on this planet, and before he gets where he needs to be. Um, it's shown. I'm trying to see if I can think of a good image of it that I can find quickly for you. He's always shown with this giant crystal sword in a lot of the previews and or like the flashbacks and stuff. And there it is right there. He's always got this gigantic crystal sword with him. And but once he's captured by the space pirates and he breaks free, he doesn't have it. And now he's stuck on this planet. Well, the next several issues after issue 4 are going to be him finding the pieces of that sword to put it back together again so that he can have his weapon, and that's going to make him travel the globe and fight all kinds of cool monsters and save princesses and all kinds of cool stuff. And but that's going to be the MacGuffin he's going after for the next several issues. And there are bounty hunters from his home world that are being sent his way to get this sword back from him. And so then there's going to be fighting with that. And there's so many cool characters coming. That's why I had to do a source book early on, because there's cool major characters that are coming up soon. Some of them have already been introduced in issue 3 and stuff like that, that are just going to keep on going forever and secretly tie into one of my other books, Green Zone. If you read the source book, you'll find out that these two stories are very distantly connected over like millions of years, and which is just fun for me because I like doing all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think that's fun for most creators, especially for like the indie scene, like being able to put so many different like small books, and then like you finally get a story that you want to do a long run on, and now being able to add those little pieces for everyone that's kind of followed you.
Fun. It is
Yeah.
so much fun to get to do this, and it's such a fun story, and Kaaw is so easy to write. And at first he was a little difficult to draw because he's got these massive hands that are just ridiculously out of proportion. He's got a real tiny cranium, so that was a little tough at first. Like, how do you make arms that big? Like, how does he move his arms around like that? But now it's just second nature to draw him, and I just love it. He's so much fun, and the stories just come pouring out of the page. Like the last 2 issues of the book, like I had a different place in the story I intended to be by now, but these stories just kept coming out. I was like, you know what? It's a lot better if this happens. And then, well, if that happens, then this has to happen. I'm like, okay, but now I have like 2 more books I have to do before I get back to the outline that I have laid out.
Yeah.
But this is such a cool detour, and it gets to show us all kinds of cool other things along the way, so it was worth it. But man, it's fun. But that's the freedom of getting to work on your own project. You can do whatever you want to do on it. You know, if you want to cut off the main character's arm, you can do it. If you want to, kill off the main character, you could do it. I don't know why you necessarily want to, but you could do it. And you don't have to worry about the higher ups, and the CEO being like, "No, that's going to affect cereal sales." Like, you don't have to worry about that stuff because it's my book and I can do what I want to do with it. And that's the joy and the freedom that comes with it. It's definitely more profitable doing other people's books, but getting to do my own stuff and putting it out there in the world, and then having somebody see it and love it and then come back to buy all the rest of it, and then they come back to buy, like somebody buys issue 1 of Kaaw, then they almost always come back and buy issue 2, and they want issue 3 and issue 4 in the source book. And then, they go and they check out Green Zone, and then they buy issues 2, 3 in the source book of Green Zone, and then they buy T-Man and Hyperstrike, and then they start buying sketch covers of books that they've already got just because they love the story and they want cool art on it now. And I'm like, that's amazing. I don't get that doing somebody else's story. If they get a fan that loves the story, maybe they know that. I don't get that kind of interaction. But having people come back and say, "Man, your story was so amazing and I love it and I can't wait to read the next issue of it." Dude, that's worth all the hassle. That's worth the 16-hour days right there.
I must say that's the point of being in the business, is no matter how many sales, no matter how much money you make, even you can even be Jim Lee, I mean, who's probably living pretty well, but having that one person being like, I didn't really like comic books, but your comic or your story is, that's why everyone's here. That's why we're all here.
Yeah, I mean,
Is
we
that
all have
moment.
those stories that we love like that, those stories that maybe they don't mean anything to anybody else, but they hit at just the right time for you, and that book means the world to you, or that artist, or that writer, or whatever. You know, like I'm one of my favorite artists in the world is Mark Texiera, who did not get as
Yeah.
famous in the 90s as Jim Lee and Todd McFarlane and stuff, but he had this weird mix of brush and pen work, and it was a weird mix of hyper realistic and extremely distorted and kind of surrealistic, and it was just absolutely beautiful and showed me that comic books could be more than what I was seeing. You know, they could be a completely different style. They could be really realistic and emotional and stuff like that, and didn't have to be all superposing and, you know, twisted backs and boobs sticking out. And it was just amazing to me, and it opened my mind. And my artwork is absolutely nothing like his now. Like, I went all the way back to the drawing board and retaught myself how to draw because I realized I was a knockoff of between him and Todd McFarlane. And you know, if you want to hire an artist, either one of them can do their styles better than I could do. And, you know, and will sell more books than I will trying to knock off their style. So I went back to the beginning and retaught myself how to draw with black lines on white paper. But I had that creation, you know, that beauty of what he did in my mind, and it led to my style, and it looks a lot more old school, you know, like the old guys like Ditko and Kirby and stuff, because it's a lot simpler. But I take that as an honor. I mean, we both had to figure out how to make stuff look like we wanted it to look with black lines on white paper, and we kind of got to the same place. So I dig it. I enjoy it. And less lines means I work faster, so the books go out quicker.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. No matter how many conversations you have, it's not wrong to be like, oh man, I want to be, Greg Capullo. I want to be Rob Liefeld. You know what? They are great inspiration, but you're never
Mhm.
gonna be them. I mean, that they've already
Yeah.
come and gone. Like
And
that
you're
ship
not going to
sailed.
beat them at their own game. You know, you
No,
need to
so
do your own thing.
yeah,
And
take the best of what they did and then combine it with your own style. And that's how we get books like this is, inspiration combined with the new outlook. And that's what keeps putting the whole comic book industry forward.
yeah, don't be afraid to be weird. Don't be afraid to get personal. Don't be afraid to dig deep.
No.
All those good things, because the weirder and the deeper and the more emotional it gets, the better it is. And uh, I just I love my job, man. I love my
Yeah.
job. This Even doing other people's books was my dream job. So even if I fail at doing my own stories, my fallback career is still drawing comic books, and that is freaking amazing. Like, I'm living my childhood dream. It's just like now I'm living my childhood dream while winning the lottery when my books sell well. Sometimes, some months are pretty tight, but man, it is it's just awesome, man. It's awesome. I'm
Yeah.
getting to tell my own stories, and I've got so many of them, and I don't know how much time I got left on this world, so I want to get as many of them out as quickly as I possibly can.
Exactly. Well, not one of the nice things too about your story here is I feel like some people they do like that fantasy off-world adventure as their first comic, but then they keep it on that planet, which isn't necessarily bad by any means. But I think opening yourself off to an off-world, even if you don't know where that adventure is going to end, you do open a lot more doors instead of just being like, well, he was on a planet, he went to the other side of the planet, now he's going to come
Mhm.
back. And I mean, that's
Yeah,
kind of
you're
the end
not
of your
just
story.
you're not just stuck with John Carter on Mars. Like, you could go anywhere, and
Yeah.
that's one of the things I like about it, because like Zion, where he came from, and Omega Terra, where he is now, are very, very different planets. And Zion is all basically one giant mega city at this point. It's all overbuilt with technology, and looks a lot more like Cybertron than it would look like Earth. And then the planet he's on now has some technology, but it also has a lot of wizardry, and it's very like Thundar the Barbarian vibes. Like, there are some people that kept the old technology alive, but mostly it's fantasy weapons and magic and things like that. And but there's also like a species of robots and stuff that live there. It's all kinds of cool stuff. And the coolest thing to me, okay, the coolest thing about it is that my story has inspired other people to make stories. And that's like what He-Man and Star Wars and stuff did for me as a kid, and
Yeah.
had ideas popping out of my head. And I've had some of my creator friends come to me, like my buddy T.S. Luther was like, dude, I have got an idea for Cause. Is there any way I could write a story for it? I was like, absolutely, man. Go nuts. Show me what you got.
Yeah.
And he wrote this story that was so amazing that I'm currently like printing it right now. I illustrated it and put it in my next anthology book, Fish Tales, which is shipping out for last month for my Patreon backers. And and it's got a story from the world of Kaw, not following him, but following one of the new characters that he meets in issue 3 and showing you more about her life growing up before all this happened. And so you get to find out more about the world, and you get to see more of the other clans that live on this world. And it it is so cool to know that you've inspired somebody to want to get creative and come play in your sandbox with your toys. It's freaking amazing, man. I love it. I
Definitely.
absolutely love it.
Um, Now the design looks, like I said, it looks great. I love the hyper muscle. I mean, again, that's my dad I kind of grew up, even though I was born in the 90s, I grew up on 70s and 80s because that's just where my uncles and everyone. So I have a very old school background. And I love the bird, always the bird head with the muscular body. I think it's just, again, it has that classic look to it that's just really reminiscent. Was
Yeah.
there ever a point where you drew it that you're like, oh, I really like the bird head, but maybe this animal hybrid as well, and you kind of compared, you're like, no, I'm gonna stick with this. Was there another?
Oh, okay. I got to tell you how I came up with this idea because it all plays in together. I'm buddies with Stephen Butler, who's a comic book artist. He's worked at Marvel and Archie, and he used to do Sonic the Hedgehog. He did Web of Spider-Man during the Clone Saga, and Ben Riley is famous because of him.
Yep.
And we're friends, and we're the same age, and we're from the South, and so we like a lot of the same things. And we're comic book artists, so we're always sending each other stuff to watch that we can listen to while we're working. Because if you're looking at the TV, you're not working. But if it's
Yeah.
something that I can listen to, and it's a documentary about old timers in comics or something like that, we send each other a lot of stuff like that we enjoy. And he was sending me all these old Flash Gordon serials, the old black and white
Yeah.
short movie clips. And I was watching them as I was getting ready to lay down and take a nap because I don't sleep well because of the ADD and the working all the time. And so I was going to take a nap, and I was drifting off to sleep, and I was like, man, I always loved the Hawkmen from Flash Gordon. And I've always wanted to do a bird character, mainly because I hated drawing wings. And if I hate doing something, I want to do more of that because then I'll get good at it and then I'll
Yeah.
enjoy it. Like I hated drawing hands in the beginning. This issue of my anthology has a room covered with thousands of hand spiders everywhere because like I'm not going to let anything stop me. Now hands are fun. I do it all the time. But, you know, I steer into the skit. And I was thinking, I've always wanted to do a bird character, but I never really hit the design that I liked right. And I'm getting sleepier, and I'm like, and hawkmen are done to death, and owls are done to death. There's, all kinds of midnight owls and black owls and whatnot. It's like, my favorite bird really is a crow. And I fell asleep. And then I saw this image of Caw the Cro-Magnon, and I woke up laughing at the pun. And I got up, I sketched it out real quick so I wouldn't forget it. The drawing is in, like, I think it's in the source book. It might even be in the first issue. I can't remember. I spent like 2 weeks trying to hone that image down and make it better because far too often I just like start a book and just start. And like I realized in one of my books, Green Zone, one of the main characters is the 8-foot lizard man. And I realized somewhere along the way, he looked a lot better with 3 fingers and a thumb instead of 4 fingers. So somewhere in the first issue, he just loses a finger. I hate that. So I really wanted to get this nailed down because I knew I had something. And I had him walking on all fours. I gave him little wings coming off of his forearms and his legs. And in the end, he looks almost exactly like that first drawing, except I made his scars more symmetrical and I gave him pants and his hands are a little bit bigger. Other than that, it's the exact dude that came out that first time in that first sketch. But it was just magic. He's just got such a cool, epic look to him, and it's fun
Definitely.
and like you know what you're gonna get as soon as you see him flying in. Like you know this isn't gonna be highbrow. This isn't gonna be, a deep look at economic political structures. No, this isn't about racism. This is just Bird Barbarian
Fun
kicking butt.
story.
It's just
Perfect.
fun, and he will rip your arm off and beat you with it. It is kind of bloody and it is a little violent, but that's what he is. Like it isn't for the kids. I got to remind people that sometimes because he looks kind of Saturday morning cartoonish, like he looks like you could see him, zooming in with the Super Friends or something. But there are a lot of like people with their heads turned the wrong way or their heads on the opposite side of the room from their bodies or holding their insides. There's like one he's just covered in blood in one scene. Like it's not for everybody. My kids wouldn't have minded, but other people's kids might have nightmares. So, just keep that in mind. Your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I mean, you see a giant barbarian. I feel like to some degree, everyone
You would
everyone
think
should
with
have.
the giant sword and stuff, you would think
Yeah,
he might use that. But, but then if you grew up on Ninja Turtles and stuff where they don't get to use their weapons and, Spider-Man could never hit anybody in the old animated series and like if you grow up with that kind of thing, you're like, oh well, he has a giant sword. He probably uses it for getting pizzas out of the pizza oven or something. And no, he uses it for slicing people in half, like you
yeah,
do.
yes. I used to tell people you're either a Mortal Kombat where you saw the blood fly out, or you're a Mortal Kombat where you saw the sweat get pushed out. You're one or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't even
Um,
know it did sweat.
yeah, what was it? First rendition of it to get rid of the rating for Mortal Kombat. They changed all the red blood to sweat.
Oh my
Just so
goodness.
they could sell the game.
Oh, that's crazy. Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny.
So it's great story. Obviously, this Kickstarter is going live soon or is already in
Oh,
motion.
it's already in motion. We're like $200 away from the goal right now, and it goes until May 17th. So there's still plenty of time to get in. There are compounding free gifts that I'm giving away. Like the people that got in the first 48 hours got this sticker sheet added to their order. The people that came in like after that got this big holographic sticker, and the early backers get everything piled up. Right now, if you back, I've got this bookmark that has a little comic strip that actually shows the story of how Kaaw got his name in the arena and why he went into the arena when he was so young. So that's the free giveaway for right now. And if people back my book at the physical level and my buddy's book, Colonel Jefferson, which you can find links to on the Kickstarter, you get this 16-page mini comic, which is like, the He Man mini comics that came in the back of the action figures. And it has two stories. One was written and illustrated by me, one was written and illustrated by him. Uh, his book, Colonel Jefferson, takes place in a world where the top of California and the bottom of whatever's above California separated into the state of Jefferson, like the people actually wanted to do. And it's like a super crazy, MAGA loving, utopia. It's a redneck utopia. And Colonel Jefferson is, like the epitome of America personified. And so his story is really funny because it's Dork, the Cro-Magnon accountant, and he got trapped in the world of Colonel Jefferson, and now he's stuck working 9 to 5 as a giant bird barbarian in an accounting department, and he starts a blood feud with Karen from accounting because she jammed the copier again. And then in my story, it's a spoof of the last Starfighter, and the evil king from Omega Terra is looking for somebody that can defeat Kaaw. So he sends this video game out to the world, and we get cameos from like my buddy's character Steel Wolf, Danny J. Quick's Ace Blade. That's Alice Lost in Wonderland from my other story that I do, and then one ends up here with Colonel Jefferson, and so chaos and hilarity ensues. There's lots of cool cameos, and then he ends up getting teleported to the world of kaaw. And I'm trying to work backwards here. That's confusing. It's a lot of fun, and you only get this if you back both of our books at the physical level. So this is going to be one of the rarest comic books in indie comics, and so that's something that you can get in on right now too. So go check it
Awesome.
out.
So
Go
go
MrFish.com, takes you
MrFish.com.
right there.
Perfect. And then obviously if they just go to kickstarter.com, the Great Kaaw will
just type in
bring them.
KAAW and it'll take it right there. It's
Oh.
I shouldn't have spelled it weird, but it just looks cooler for a Cro-Magnon, like a barbarian name, than CAW. But I have that problem. I always end up spelling things unusually, and then it makes them hard to search for. So there's a
That's
tip,
all
kiddies.
right.
Make it easy to search for.
So for everyone listening, we will have all these links in the comments that you can go and follow. For anyone listening that is interested in following you and what you're up to, where are the best places to find you and keep in touch with you?
I am Mr. Fish Comics everywhere on all social medias. TikTok is a really good place to keep up with me. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. And also, I got the Mr. Fish Comics Patreon. If you like what you see, you can subscribe there. Like $3 lets you watch the art stream and hang out while I'm working on pages and ask questions and stuff. $5 gets you a new digital comic every month. $10 gets you a new actual physical printed comic book, every month shipped to your door. And I have a stockpile of books that I haven't done yet, that I haven't shipped out yet. Like I've got the first 4 books from my Green Zone series that I'm going to ship out when I start working on the next issue. So that's going to be the lead up to what will be the trade. We'll be putting out those 4 books the 4 months before that. So, if I broke my arm, let's say, I've got like a good 6 months worth of stockpile of books to keep me busy shipping. So books are going to keep coming no matter what.
Perfect.
Yeah.
That's all you can ask for. All right. Well, everyone listening, thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for showing us your book. You can find that now. Go MrFish.com or look it up on Kickstarter. Again, links will be in the comic. And we look forward to seeing this comic progress. This is awesome.
Oh yeah, it is so much fun, and there is so much in store, man. I'm so excited about it. It is so cool, man. Thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Everyone listening, go follow him on all social media. Fish Comics, correct?
Yeah, Mr. Fish Comics.
Mr. Fish Comics.
MRFISH. Sometimes it's Mr. Fish.comics, but it's Mr. Fish Comics everywhere. I'm pretty easy to find.
Perfect. All right. Everyone listening, thanks for tuning in. You could watch this on YouTube, or if you are listening to this podcast, you can find it wherever you get your podcast. Everyone, have a good night.